Welcome back to the Fanboy Cantina. This is our review of the latest MCU installment, The Marvels. We're going to go spoiler light at first, and then we'll dive into the spoilers. So first, with the spoiler light, The Marvels is a sequel to Brie Larson's Captain Marvel film that also serves as a sequel to Captain Monica Rambeau's story in WandaVision and Ms. Marvel in the Disney Plus series of the same name. While I was generally entertained for the majority of the movie, it's not a great movie. On the high points, Iman Vellani's Ms. Marvel is a joy to watch, bringing that youthful, energy, that fun of discovery that, Tom Holland brought to the Spider-Man franchise. And the glimpses of, the family dynamics in Kamala Khan's household are fun. And, I actually thought it was better rendered, more believably done in the Disney Plus series, but nonetheless fun to watch here. And despite the reports of challenges in filming, there is a good chemistry between Teyonah Parris's Rambeau, Captain Marvel, and Ms. Marvel. And the two end credits were good and actually tee up some of the future of the MCU. And that's about it in terms of good parts. Overall, the film feels very rushed. It's an hour and 45 minutes. The storytelling is sloppy, and short bits of dialogue explain the narrative and plot points, but it's so brief that moments don't get to breathe, and accordingly, there's not much heart or emotional stakes in this movie. And in the beginning of the movie, there's a fight scene that brings the three together, but the way that it's edited and executed are nearly incomprehensible, and it's too long. For all the clunky moments, I wondered is this the original story, or is it a reshoot that was shoehorned in? Nick Fury, the super spy from Winter Soldier, is reduced down to something, to fit the tone of the movie. Maybe not a caricature, but certainly not the same figure from the previous movies. The villain here is forgettable. It's essentially Ronan the Accuser, even with the same weapon, but without the humor. Most glaringly, the film takes two big swings with the movie, but they're not so much as being interesting or bold plot twists or something like that. They're really tests of whether the viewer is still going to be engaged in this movie. And the first one is so ridiculous that you feel transported into, some other Disney movie. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You know the scene that I'm talking about. I was thinking, this would be really interesting if it was a what if episode on Disney Plus, but not here in this movie. And as for the other thing that happens towards the end of the movie, I was already kind of mentally checked out at that point. I'd need to give thought about whether this is the worst MCU movie and, kind of how does one judge that kind of thing. But, for the most part, I was entertained, and almost entirely due to, again, Iman Vellani's wonderful performance as Ms. Marvel. But this movie certainly is one of the least polished and most clunky entries into the MCU. All right, so this is your one and only warning. We're going to get into the spoilers from right now. All right, so as I said, the writing is truly sloppy. This could have been a better movie. It would have been interesting to see more of the story. It would have been interesting to see more about Captain Marvel and her legacy as the Annihilator, but seeing that, it only gets seconds of screen time. There's the chase scene out of Musicland, or whatever the water planet is called, and it ends abruptly to the point where, it just ends with them diving into this field, and then the three heroes step out, and then they proceed to explain the plot to all of us. When Ronan Light confronts Captain Marvel about what she's done to the planet, there's this concerned glance that Monica gives to Captain Marvel that made me wonder, maybe there was a cut of this movie, maybe there was a version of the story where Captain Marvel would have been portrayed more as the villain, and that could have been really interesting considering the beginning where Ms. Marvel has such of a fan crush for Captain Marvel. That could have been really interesting as an opportunity, but all of that is lost. It's all just sort of swept under the rug. Action sequences and their transitions are handled so quickly and abruptly that it blows any chance of emotional stakes. When the Skrull colony is completely decimated, and in a way due to Captain Marvel's actions before, which were handled off screen, none of that emotional weight is allowed to soak in. Some bits feel out of place. There's that line that you see in the trailer where Monica Rambeau says, I can't even. And it feels like it's in this movie just for the sake of having something for the trailer. And the core gimmick of the Marvels switching between each other honestly didn't make sense to me at the very beginning because of the haphazard way that it's edited. It didn't make sense. It was just a completely chaotic scene in that sequence, and it didn't make sense where it seemed like sometimes they're using their powers but they don't switch, and sometimes they do. I didn't really get it. And as for towards the end where Monica Rambeau closes that time-space rift, why didn't you just close it on this side? Why'd you have to go to the other side? Certain story choices don't make sense. But the worst part of the movie is that dance sequence and the Flurkin escape. The dance sequence tonally just sticks out as being out of place. Certainly you could say Guardians of the Galaxy, indulged in the ridiculous with the, dance battle with Ronan the Accuser, right? And actually, I didn't like that bit in that movie either. But this is just obnoxious in how it's handled. It's not particularly funny, it's not very well executed, and it just feels like it's a test to see, hey, is the audience still going to be in for the ride? Is the audience still going to tolerate this movie? And as for the Flurkin escape, that was ridiculous too, but the the musical bit thing, it just felt out of place and threw me out of the movie. The only good pieces of this movie are the end credits. We get to see the X-Men and the MCU, right, in some other reality, I guess, and we get to see the beginning of the Young Avengers, which is, possibly a surprise to somebody, although it's all kind of teed up in the Disney Plus series. So, the end credits were good. That's the best that I can say of the movie, really, other than Iman Vellani's wonderful performance. It's not a great movie at all. But we want to hear from you. Post in the comments, what did you think of the Marvels? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between. Post in the comments. Would love to hear from you. If you loved the movie, I wish that I loved the movie, but as I said, a lot of issues. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. This has been the Fanboy Cantina.